My salutations to all the seekers of the Bhagavad Gita. So, welcome to our third lesson. The course we have started is First Step into Bhagavad Gita. This is the third lesson. So, today we are going to talk about a fascinating story, a brief history of the Bhagavad Gita. We will do a quick recap and immediately we get on to the topic of today's discussion. We have completed two lessons. On the first lesson, what we discussed was, why should I study a 5,000-year-old scripture like Bhagavad Gita in this digital age? We elaborated this topic in detail and understood the necessity or the need of studying Bhagavad Gita at this time. And last week, we spent our time in understanding what exactly is this Bhagavad Gita. We always talk about Bhagavad Gita. We wanted to understand what exactly is Bhagavad Gita. What we identified was Bhagavad Gita is a body of knowledge in the form of a song given by none other than the universal intelligence. Religions call it as Bhagavan. And if you want a neutral name, you can call it as universal intelligence. And what exactly is the scope of this body of knowledge? It's a manual given to humanity for living an ideal life. An ideal life means a life that leads you to efficiency, a life that leads you to the higher purpose of the life. At the very same time, a life that helps you to live a healthy, happy, a peaceful life. So this is Bhagavad Gita. And then we talked quickly about the subject matter of the Bhagavad Gita. Two topics. One is Brahma Vidya, which is the knowledge about yourself and the knowledge about the world and the knowledge about the governing principle of the universe called Bhagavan. And what exactly is the relationship between these three? That is Brahma Vidya. And then the second subject matter of the Bhagavad Gita is Yoga or Yoga Shastra, which is what exactly is the lifestyle I need to adopt to align with this higher way of life. That is Yoga Shastra. We saw that. And also we talked about the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, Dharma. We are trying to understand the meaning of Dharma in our day-to-day life. Dharma is the set of rules I need to follow. What needs to be done, that is what is Dharma. That makes everything harmonious together, that is Dharma. And then we talked about the structure of the Bhagavad Gita, 18 chapters, 701 verses, composed in 2 meters. And the structure is chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita is the problem statement of the fundamental human problem is expressed using a prototype called Arjuna, because it is not Arjuna's problem alone. It is a universal problem. And then the second chapter is a summary of the entire topics covered by the Bhagavad Gita. And chapter 3 to 17 is an elaboration of each of the subject matter mentioned in the chapter 2. And finally, chapter 8 is a recap. Another way of looking at Bhagavad Gita is each 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita predominantly focus on one topic. The first 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita focuses on myself. And the second 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talk about the universal intelligence or the Bhagavan. And then finally, the last 6th chapter tried to establish my relationship with that universal intelligence. So this is the structure of the Bhagavad. This is what we covered so far. And the previous lessons, the video is available in YouTube and the audio is available in Spotify. If you have missed any topic, any lessons, I encourage you to go back and listen or watch those sessions. And also we published the materials as PDF. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to post those questions in our Q&A WhatsApp forum. We will pick up every questions. So let's get started with today's topic. So today's topic is, what we wanted to talk is a brief history of the Bhagavad Gita. First of all, if you think about a scripture, it's not necessary to understand the history of that scripture to appreciate the value of the scripture or to live the messages mentioned in that scripture You don't need to understand the history. So why we are taking an hour and talking about the history of the Bhagavad Gita? Only purpose here is, this is a 5,000-year-old history, right? 5,000 years is not a small time. Throughout the history, how this wonderful scripture has inspired different individuals in different capacity for different purpose, and what change this scripture has made in the life of those individuals, and how the scripture stood the test of time. 5,000 years, it's not an ordinary thing. And also what was spoken to one person, why we are sitting here and studying in 2024. When you understand that history, you appreciate the value of the scripture much more. And when you appreciate the value of the scripture, it will prompt you, or it will inspire you to learn that scripture, to spend time to learn that scripture more. That is the purpose of talking about the history. So let's try to understand the brief history of the Bhagavad Gita. First of all, there is a clarification. When you talk about the history of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, I'm contradicting myself, because Bhagavad Gita, as we understood earlier, it's a manual of life. They are the essential laws that governs the life of an individual. It is the basic principles that explains the nature of the reality of the universe. And there is no history. They are not bound by time. There is no history for such rules. The yoga taught in the Bhagavad Gita, it was there always. From time immemorial, this was there. Even Krishna is going to clarify that in the 4th chapter. So the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't have an history. It was there as long as along with when the universe got manifested, these laws came into being. And these laws will be there even if all of us forget about these rules or the laws. So they are not bound by time. They are not bound by history. So what exactly is the history when we talk about the history of the Bhagavad Gita? The shlokas we see, the 18 chapters we see, the specific shlokas, karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu gata jana, right? Those type of shlokas, the structure, the composition of the poetry in Anushtup and Trishtup, those have an history. Let me give you a simple example to make this point very clear. For example, the law of gravitation. The law of gravitation was discovered by Sir Isaac Newton in the 16th century or the 17th century maximum. Do you think that the law of gravity was not there before that discovery? The law of gravity was there ever since the earth got manifested. It just happened that Sir Isaac Newton discovered it in 16th century and documented it in a particular form. So that has a history, but the law is beyond history. So just like that, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita are eternal. There is no history, but the particular format, the poetic form, has a history. And when you talk about that, the history of the Bhagavad Gita, we are only talking about that particular structure and form. So let's continue. So the origins of the Bhagavad Gita. Most of you might be knowing the Bhagavad Gita is originally it was not an independent textbook. This was part of the mighty epic Mahabharata. As you know, there are two major epic India has gifted to humanity. One is Mahabharata and the other one is Ramayana. The Mahabharata is the largest epic or the largest composition in the history of humanity with over 85,000 shlokas. If you want to understand and appreciate the magnanimity of the Mahabharata, you may need to compare with the next two epics in the portfolio of the literature of epics, Odyssey and Iliad by Homer. Most of you must have heard. These are the other two epics popular along with Ramayana and Mahabharata. So to understand and appreciate the size of the Mahabharata, if you combine the size of Iliad and Odyssey, and if you times that by 4, that is the size of Mahabharata. So now Bhagavad Gita is only a small portion of that Mahabharata. 701 verses in 87,500 verses. Not even 1% of the Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is nested within Bhishma Parva, one of the chapters of the Mahabharata, 701 verses. And this particular Bhagavad Gita is presented as a conversation between Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna to addressing the fundamental problems of the life. That is the history of the Bhagavad Gita. So it started in the epic Mahabharata as a conversation between Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna, addressing the fundamental problems of the human life. And this conversation of Krishna and Arjuna is captured by the great sage Vyasa and put it as part of the great epic Mahabharata. That is how the Bhagavad Gita got originated in its current form. So, and also, when is the historical timeline of Mahabharata? It's being debated by the scholar. Nobody has a clear answer. But certainly it is between 2500 to 6000 year old. So that itself shows how old it is. So this is the origin of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, as I said, this Gita was not easily accessible to the common person because of the sheer size of the Mahabharata. Even if people go to Mahabharata, it was very unlikely that they could find these 701 verses because Mahabharata is full of treasure. There are so many great things in Mahabharata, and Gita was not even 1% of the Mahabharata. So in the sheer size of the Mahabharata, the Gita was not easily accessible. And that is the contribution of the great master Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya, recognizing the importance of this great work, he picked up the 701 verses and created and presented it as an independent textbook. So around 700 AD, so again long time back, this great master Shankaracharya, he extracted Gita out of Mahabharata and presented it as an independent work. And he also wrote a master commentary that unfolds the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And this commentary is known for its clarity and the logical arguments. And even now, when we follow this class, when we wanted to do this class and when we write the book, including people like us, go back to Shankaracharya's commentary for the authentic reference. So Shankaracharya played a great role in bringing this teaching of Bhagavad Gita, extracting it out of the Mahabharata, presenting it as an independent work, a textbook, and also writing a brilliant commentary. This is the contribution of Shankaracharya. And I can go on and talk about Shankaracharya a lot. His lifespan was 32 years old, and he wrote the commentary of the Gita when he was in late teens, 18 or 19, or maximum his early 20s. And when you read his commentary, you will be surprised to see the logic and the clarity he has put in his commentary. So that's a great chapter in the history of the Bhagavad Gita. And following Shankara, lot of Sanskrit commentaries started coming in. Lot of people, lot of great masters started writing various commentaries. And these commentaries, please understand that they are written from various perspectives. For example, the Ramanujacharya's commentary of Gita is from a different metaphysical point of view than Shankara. Ramanujacharya talking about Vishishtadvaita, qualified. Each of these masters, based on their personal experience, based on their metaphysical affinity, try to see and explain Gita, what they have found. I cannot say that one is good, the other one is bad. These are different perspectives, and the beauty of the Gita is that it lends itself for various type of commentaries, various interpretation, and whatever commentary you can relate to, that is fine, because that is the beauty of the Gita. Every commentary just enriches the Gita study. And these insights actually is the treasure we have at this point of time. And then sub-commentaries started coming, like commentaries of the commentary. And even the next level of commentaries of the commentaries started coming in. So after Shankaracharya, a lot of Sanskrit commentaries of Gita started coming in. And these are some of the popular Sanskrit commentaries. The 10th century, Shankaracharya was around 7th century. He created his commentary. And after that, Ramanujacharya, some great master from Tamil Nadu, he created the commentary in the Vishishtadvaita school, which is the qualified monoism. And after that, Madhavacharya, in 11th century, he created a commentary in the Dvaita school. That was around 11th century. These two commentaries are very popular. If you read these commentaries, they appears to be contradicting. But as I said, like these are different point of views. From that point of view, that is correct. I cannot say that one is great, the other one is wrong. And then there is a commentary by Abhinavagupta. It was in 11th century. He visualizes the Mahabharata battle or the battle of the Gita as a subjective battle between knowledge and ignorance. This is a beautiful commentary, predominantly based upon the Kashmiri Shaivism. That's another beautiful commentary in the portfolio of the Gita commentary. And then Sridhara Swami, a popular saint on 14th century, wrote a beautiful commentary, again using the Advaita Vedanta tradition, but a simple commentary. That's a beautiful commentary. Sridhara Swami, that is another great commentator of the Bhagavad Gita. Then Vallabhacharya, all of you might be knowing as a great master in the Bhakti and the Vaishnava school. On 15th century, he wrote a beautiful commentary of the Gita, emphasizing devotion to God as the main path. And Madhusudana Saraswati, another popular teacher, in 16th century, he wrote a brilliant commentary known as Gutartha Deepika. That is another great addition. This is Advaita Vedanta tradition, and I also refer that commentary. It's such a great commentary. This is 16th century based on Advaita Vedanta school. And Madhusudana Saraswati also is believed to, meaning the person who wrote the Gita Dhyana Shloka. So he is a great master. And then actually there is another Vishwanatha Chakravarti. He is 17th century. He is again from Vaishnava school. He wrote a beautiful Sanskrit sanctuary. And another commentator or a great master was Baladeva Vidyabhushana, 18th century. He wrote a commentary again based upon the Bhakti school, Gaudiya Vaishnava school based commentary. So these are some of the Sanskrit commentaries. So initially this was actually buried in Mahabharata, and after that Shankaracharya took the Gita out of Mahabharata, presented it as an independent work, and other Sanskrit commentaries started coming. These are some of the popular Sanskrit commentary. But very interestingly, this Sanskrit commentaries were not reaching out to the common people, right? It was confined to only scholars with Sanskrit knowledge. For common people, just like Ramayana became very popular only when Tulasidas ji started writing his commentary. And then obviously it started in various languages like in Tamil, the Kamba Ramayanam, Malayalam, Adhyatma Ramayanam, etc. So Bhagavad Gita also was pretty much limited to the scholars. This was changed by the great saint known as Jnaneshwar. He compiled a beautiful commentary of Bhagavad Gita in Marathi, and it is popularly known as Jnaneshwari. And those who from Maharashtra, I'm sure you will appreciate the contribution of Jnaneshwara. This is a brilliant commentary, and what he did was, on the serene banks of the river Godavari, in the presence of his father and guru Nivrittinatha, he started teaching the Gitas in local vernacular Marathi. And his faithful scribe Sachidananda documented every lecture he has given, and finally it became the Jnaneshwari. This was a great step in popularizing Gita in a local vernacular, and immediately after that this inspired a lot of people from different parts of the India like Bengali, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. Translations start coming in. So Jnaneshwara played a significant role in popularizing Gita in India by translating that from Sanskrit to a local vernacular. So this is very important. And again, you just need to, meaning the inspiring point is that Jnaneshwara's life was only 21 years. His lifespan was only 21 years. So what he has accomplished in that young age is unbelievable. So that is the importance of Jnaneshwara and Jnaneshwari. But again, so initially it was Gita was confined to only Sanskrit scholars, and then it came to various Indian languages, but it was not popular outside of India. So the first English translation of the Gita came in 1785. A person called Charles Wilkins. He was an employee of British East India Company. He translated Gita. First translation of the Gita was made by him. And he translated the Gita because of the then Governor General of British India, Warren Hastings. He had a big fascination for Bhagavad Gita because he heard the translations of the Gita, he understood Gita from the local people, and that inspired him. And what he has written on the preface of the first translation is, this book, the British rule in India will come to an end one day, but the message of the Gita will continue to inspire humanity forever. This is what his perception of Gita. So he understood the value of the Gita, Warren Hastings, and he employed a person called Charles Wilkins. He had to learn Sanskrit and he had to do the translation. This was not a great translation, but this was the first translation of the Gita into English. And that facilitated the spread of Gita into the global stage. So this is an important milestone in the history of the Gita. So now the global journey of the Gita started. So this translation of Charles Wilkins went to England, into Germany and Russia and all those places. Initially, this created some interest among some scholars because as a poetic work, as a philosophical work, not as a scripture, right? So they appreciated it. And this got translated into French, Russian, German, Latin, and different languages, European languages, a translation of the translation. By late 1800, right, these translations were widely available in the West. And slowly, people discovered that this is not just a poetry. This is not just a literature. This is a spiritual book. This has a lot of value. So the whole thinkers of the Europe, meaning various thinkers of the Europe, started inspired by this great scripture, Bhagavad Gita. So that's an interesting point. And then what happened? This Wilkins translation eventually ended up in America and started inspiring a set of great thinkers. And if you go back and read the history of America, one of the greatest movement of the America is the transcendent movement. This was spearheaded by two major people. One is Emerson and the other one is Thoreau. And these two visionaries were inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. And this Gita's translation of the Wilkins was given to Emerson by one thinker called Carlyle. He gifted a copy of the Gita to Emerson, and you can read in his biography, you can read in the history. This has changed his vision completely. You can see the fragrance of Gita in his writings. There are several poetries which was inspired by the Gita. And these are all things that makes you goosebump. How these Emerson and Thoreau are considered as one of the greatest genius this country has ever produced. And both were inspired by the teachings of the Gita, and their movement of the transcendentalism was heavily inspired. So that's what happens in the history of Gita, the transcendentalist movement, and it continued. So in post 1880, the Gita started spreading into various Western, in the West a lot. So significant rise of translation. Actually, what happened as a result of that? It broadened the global reach of the Gita. So the Gita, it gives a new perspective to scholars and thinkers because the type of scripture they saw in Gita is completely different from what they were experiencing. It's triggered a lot of discussions and it inspired so many people. And most of the time, the focus was given on that subjective battle the Gita is envisioning, the battle within. So, a lot of discussions, people started discussing about that. And one of the other translation, popular translation in that time was the Song Celestial by Sir Edwin Arnold. The Song Celestial, it was 1885. This is a poetic translation, English poetry. He translated whole 701 verses of the Gita. It is one of the most famous translation. And the paradox or interesting point is that this is the translation Mahatma Gandhi first read on the Bhagavad Gita when he was in South Africa. Obviously, that triggered him to study Gita more, but this was the beginning. And the Sir Edwin Arnold, he was a very famous poet, and two books he produced. One is obviously the Song Celestial, and the second book was The Light of Asia, which is about Buddha, Bhagavan Buddha. These two were outstanding work. So this is the translation of Song Celestial. And then finally what happens was 1893, Swami Vivekananda came to America. He actually took America by storm with his famous Chicago address, and also the couple of years his lecture tours in America. And he started teaching about Gita, and that created a new awareness of Gita to various people in the Western Hemisphere. This is another chapter in the history of Gita in the Western Hemisphere. These are very fascinating story. Now, so this is how the Gita came to West. So we saw that how the original Gita, which was there in Mahabharata, got into an independent translation, and then from the Sanskrit, various Sanskrit commentaries came, and from the Sanskrit commentaries, it got into various Indian languages, and then it got translated into various European languages. Finally, it came to America, and it inspired a lot of people. And another aspect in the history of Gita is its role in the independence movement. India's independence movement is one of the greatest lesson for the humanity in the history of the world. Because compared to the independence movement of every other country, India's independent movement is very, very special. And it is fascinating, and it is so inspiring the role Gita played in this great movement. Ever since 1900, Bhagavad Gita was the pivotal inspirational force in the independence. Because every leader of the independent movement was inspired Gita and used as a strategic manual for the freedom movement. Right? A lot of people, wrote Gita, this freedom movement, as a modern Kurukshetra, like a Kurukshetra war that is fought between Kauravas and Pandavas. And they use Gita to collect the social and political mobilization a lot. And obviously, there were different point of views on the means of freedom struggle. For example, Subhash Chandra Bose, who was a great ardent follower of the Bhagavad Gita, he believed in an armed struggle. Whereas Mahatma Gandhi, who read the same Bhagavad Gita, interpreted the message of the Bhagavad Gita and used Gita's message for his non-violent movement. So the means were different, but the fact that both the leaders were inspired by Bhagavad Gita is really beautiful. So more to come on that. So Swadeshi March, right? The first Swadeshi March in 1905. 50,000 individuals, first time, they marched to the Kali temple in Kolkata, each carrying a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, pledging to reject the British goods. This was a big historical incident in the history of India. Imagine 50,000 people marching with Bhagavad Gita and pledging that we are going to boycott all the foreign goods. That was very big, and Gita was the unifying force there. And then what happened? The British started. This incident forced the British to view Gita as a nationalistic emblem. Meaning, you won't believe, they banned keeping more than one copy of the Gita in the household, because they thought that people will give a copy of the Gita and this will inspire people to fight for the freedom rights. So this itself shows the importance of Gita in the independence movement. And Gita Press in Kharagpur, which started in 1927, they started a strategic resistance. They started printing and distributing millions of copies of the Gita and Gita diaries. And this has inspired a lot of people. And a lot of revolutionaries at that point of time, they went to their, like the last journey, when they went to their final sentence, they carried a copy of the Gita, right? So Madanlal Dhingra and Khudiram Bose, all these are like, you can see these three people, they played, meaning they went to their final journey, when they went to the death sentence, they carried a Bhagavad Gita. So you can understand how much the scripture has influenced the collective consciousness of the country, and how much the scripture has inspired people to do the right and get freedom. And this is the emblem of the Gita Press. They did a great job in spreading this message of the Gita. Continuing, Bala Gangadhara Tilak, he is the father of the Indian unrest. He was a pivotal figure, I don't have to explain. He used Gita as one of his major source of inspiration. One of the greatest commentary of the Gita is known as Gita Rahasya. This is written by Tilak when he was in the jail of Burma, Mandela jail. He wrote this entire book without any reference. While he was in the jail, he wrote this. And you can see how much the scripture has influenced this great freedom fighter. And the second one is none other than Mahatma Gandhi. I don't have to explain about Mahatma, the architect of the non-violent movement in the entire world, inspiring different personalities, including the Martin Luther King of the United States. He is renowned as for his ascetic lifestyle and ethical convictions, and his leadership was rooted in the compassion and truth. And he has written a brilliant commentary of the Gita known as Anasakti Yoga. And Mahatma Gandhi publicly acknowledged that all the great thing he has done, Bhagavad Gita was his inspiration. He used to say that this is my compass, this is my guide. And he used to see Gita as his mother. And he used to say that there is no other scripture in the world. Even he has used, even the Sermon of Mount has not influenced me like the Bhagavad Gita. So Gita was the guiding force of Mahatma Gandhi, and his ahimsa and satyagraha was derived from Gita. You will see it as an irony. We will see that when we study the verse by verse of the Gita, from where he has inspired. So we'll talk about that. But Mahatma Gandhi was inspired by Gita. And the next person is Aravinda Ghosh. I just wanted to call out all these people because, you know, each of these personalities were influenced by Gita. He was a philosopher, he was a yogi, and he was a revolutionist also. He was the one advocated for the Purna Swaraj, complete self-rule. And he is the first one who demanded the full independence for India from British rule. And Bhagavad Gita was his major inspirational force. And he wrote a beautiful book on Gita called Essays on Gita. The next person is none other than Annie Besant. She was a great supporter of the Indian freedom movement and Irish self-rule. And Bhagavad Gita was certainly one of the most inspired books she had. And she also wrote a book called the Text and Translation. She read that. So she was very much influenced by the message of the Bhagavad Gita and always to quote Bhagavad Gita and got influenced by the Gita. So that is Annie Besant. And then C. Rajagopalachari. He was a statesman and a writer. He was popularly known as Rajaji. He was a prominent Indian politician. He was the last Governor General of India. And he was also served as the Chief Minister of Madras State at that point of time. And he was an advocate of civil rights, especially against the caste system. He fought a lot. And he was very much inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. And he wrote also a book on Bhagavad Gita. And also he wrote a book on Mahabharata. But he was very much influenced by this great scripture. So Rajaji is another person. Obviously, Subhash Chandra Bose, one of the most charismatic leader in the history of the humanity. He is the one who took a different approach. He was contrasting with the non-violent movement of Gandhiji. He wanted an armed struggle, and he created a force called Azad Hindu Fauj, and he fought against the British, and he also viewed Bhagavad Gita as a great influence or inspiration, especially on the teachings of duty and action. So, fighting for righteousness was his major inspiration from Gita. So that is Subhash Chandra Bose. And Vinoba Bhave. Vinoba Bhave, Vinobaji, popularly known as Vinobaji, is often considered as the spiritual successor of Mahatma Gandhi, and he is one of the key figure in the Sarvodaya movement of India. And he was a great reformer. He was the one who initiated this Bhudan movement, like donating the land, and he redistributed that land to the poor people. And he was a champion of non-violence, and Bhagavad Gita was his spiritual guide. And ethical living, that is what his focus on the Gita. And he wrote a beautiful book, Talks on Gita. That's also very famous. So this is how the Indian freedom movement was influenced by the Gita. It's an inspiring story. I know that doesn't mean anything for us right now, but you can imagine how a scripture was like influencing a great movement. So let's quickly now talk about the history of the 20th century. Lot of masters. The first one starting with Paramahamsa Yogananda. He was a great master who brought, who popularized yoga and meditation in the West. He is the one who initiated Kriya meditation and Kriya yoga into the Western world. Very influential figure, and he was also very much inspired by the Gita, and he wrote a brilliant commentary called God Talks with Arjuna. So this is beautiful book, and he talked about Gita a lot, and that contributed to the spread of Gita in the 20th century. Second one is Srila Prabhupada, popularly known as, meaning he is the one who founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, popularly known as Hare Krishna movement. You can imagine like how much they are popular all over the world. Almost every part of the world you can see ISKCON. And he also played a significant role in popularizing Bhagavad Gita. His commentary of the Bhagavad Gita is known as Bhagavad Gita as it is. Another great master was Ekanath Easwaran. He was a great spiritual teacher and very popular for his meditation techniques. Blue Mountain Meditation Center in California. And also he contributed a lot in the interfaith dialogues and understanding. And he also was an ardent follower of the Bhagavad Gita. And his book on Bhagavad Gita was the Bhagavad Gita for Daily Living. It is one of the bestseller among the books of the Bhagavad Gita. And the next one is Swami Rama. Swami Rama is a very popular yoga master. Again, he played a significant role or a key role bringing or popularizing yoga and meditation to the West. He is the first one who actually went to a clinical setup and tried to get some scientific validation for the teachings of the Gita and the yoga. So he proved to the world that certain involuntary functions can be controlled. Those tests were very famous. The first time the impact of meditation was measured scientifically using Swami Rama as the subject. So that's his beauty. And he is coming from the lineage of Himalayan masters. And his commentary is known as the perennial psychology of the Gita. And then Swami Ranganathananda. Swami Ranganathananda ji is a very distinguished monk, the 13th president of the Ramakrishna order. He was a great scholar. He traveled throughout the world and talked about Gita. And his book, The Message of the Bhagavad Gita, is also very popular. These are some of the, meaning there are a lot of other masters which I'm mentioning. These are some of the people I came across or came in my research. But I know that the contribution of the Gita cannot be confined to these people. There are so many other masters contributed to the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita in 20th century. But I cannot stop this talk without mentioning about the two masters who played a significant role in taking the message of the Gita, unlocking its message and presenting it to the modern public, especially the educated people. The first one is Swami Chinmayananda, because we all, meaning the whole projects of team, also indebted to these two teachers. The first one is Swami Chinmayananda. He was a great teacher, one of the most dynamic teachers of the Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta in the modern times. He started his teaching in 1951. He started giving lectures in English. A lot of traditional people started criticizing him at that point of time. But he started initially, only 4 people attended, but very soon it was tens of thousands of people used to gather to listen his talks in English in all parts of India and all parts of the world. Another meaning, he initiated a movement called Jnana Yajna, enlightening discourses in English, and he conducted more than 500 Jnana Yajnas in all parts of the world. Another contribution he has done is he started some, actually this is institutes of Vedanta where teachers get trained. So he wanted to make sure that a lot of teachers are initiated into this tradition. So Swami Swarupananda ji, Swami Mitrananda ji, Acharya Vivek ji, who all help us in this particular projects, came from that lineage. And actually he was able to communicate the message of the Gita very scientifically, very logically, to the diverse sections of the society. And his communication style was unbelievable. So that Swami Chinmayananda helped in spreading the message of the Gita. And his global outreach, there is more than 400 centers of Chinmaya Mission throughout the world. In US itself, you all know that more than 50 centers are there, around 50 plus centers are there. More than 50,000 kids are meaning being taught every week in the Chinmaya Mission schools. So in US, in Sunday schools. So that's the contribution of Swami Chinmayananda. And personally, I was interested in Gita only after listening to his teaching. He is the first master, inspired me to take up the study of Gita, and all of us. And Swami Chinmayananda is known as a teacher of the masses. He initiated a lot of people, or inspired a lot of people to take up the study of the Bhagavad Gita. And the second teacher I wanted to highlight is Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Swami Dayananda Saraswati is the best teacher, known for his knowledge and clear teaching style. So if I can call Swami Chinmayananda as a teacher of the masses, Swami Dayananda Saraswati is a teacher of teachers. The greatest contribution he has done is he trained hundreds of teachers throughout the world, from Spain to India to Japan to America, a lot of people, initiating them to Vedanta teaching. His Arshavidya Gurukulam is one of the best teachers training centers in the world. And his clarity and his ability to explain the complex concepts in a very simple language to the teachers is unbelievable. So he started his teachers training in Rishikesh. Dayananda Saraswati played a big role in unfolding Gita's teachings to modern people. So I cannot forget these two great masters who contributed to the teachings of the Gita. So now this legacy of the Gita, where exactly it stands in 2020s right now. So there are a lot of contemporary spiritual leaders like Swami Sarvapriyananda ji of the Vedanta Society of New York, Swami Swarupananda, the head of Chinmaya Mission, Swami Mitrananda, who came to our program last week, Acharya Vivek ji, Swami Tadatmananda of the Arshabodha, New Jersey, are some of the teachers who are continuing this mission. Their talks are getting popular. They are going to various universities, various sections of the society, and taking these teachings. So this teaching even continuing right now. And political spectrum, you heard Tulasi Gabbard, the congresswoman, famous, she took the oath on the Bhagavad Gita. So that is very interesting. And the inspirations for leaders, right? You know, the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, how much he was inspired, how much he is inspired with the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, Bhagavad Gita is his inspiration. And you can see him gifting the Bhagavad Gita to President Biden. And he used to him gift the Gita to different people. And even for G20, our co-author Avanti was also part of that project. The gift to all the G20 leaders was Bhagavad Gita copy. So that is why the political spectrum, this continues to be an inspiration for the world leaders. In academies, like almost all the major universities of Gita started incorporating Gita into their curriculum because they found that this teaching can transform the students. So you can see slowly that it started coming. An entertainment industry, right? You meaning one example I quoted is George Harrison of the Beatles. He is very much inspired by the teachings of the Gita. So that is continuing, like the lot of music is coming out. And then in the 2020s, right, the cinematic representation, like the Bagger Vance Will Smith movie, that is based upon the idea of the Bhagavad Gita. And it is so inspiring that after acting that movie, Will Smith himself got inspired by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. We talked about universities. A lot of universities started incorporating the teachings of the Gita, even though sometimes they may change the name, but at least the concepts they started integrating. And scientific community, right? You know that Oppenheimer was a great fan of Gita. Schrodinger was a fan of Gita. Jagadish Chandra Bose. But in 2020s, you can see the ISRO chairman S. Somnath very much fascinated by the teachings of the Gita. And right now, you can see a lot of interest in learning Gita in Latin America and Africa. A lot of translations are coming, a lot of teachings are coming. And finally, you could see that a lot of corporates adapting the teachings of the Gita because they found that it can inspire people, improve people. So the legacy of the Gita is continuing even now in the 2020s. So with that, let's go to our quote, Whispers of Eternity. What the Bhagavad Gita's teaching echo an everlasting sonnet of hope, courage, and wisdom across all time and space. This teaching is not confined to Indians or Hindus or anybody. History has shown that it has inspired several leaders, several humanitarians in different part of the world. And you can see, like, when they come across and inspired by the Gita, you can see their life completely transforms. If an ordinary person like Mohandas Karamchand can be transformed to the stature of a Mahatma Gandhi, Gita played a significant role in that. So this is the power of the Gita. So finally, let's recap. This timeless wisdom of the Gita is not confined. It doesn't have a history because the messages of the Gita is always true and it was always there. It was there before we documenting these teachings into this particular poetic form. And it will continue to exist even if we forget everything. And even if we lose the book, it will continue to exist. So when we talk about the history, we are only talking about the current structure and the poetic form. And this was conveyed by Bhagavan Krishna to Arjuna. And this is recorded by Vyasa and kept in the Mahabharata, 5,000 years old. And Shankaracharya, the great master Shankaracharya, took it out and presented it as an independent commentary and independent work. And after that, what happened? A lot of Sanskrit commentaries started coming in from different perspectives. And finally, it got translated into Marathi by Jnaneshwar. And after that, it got translated into various Indian languages. And the historical milestone, the Bhagavad Gita, got translated into English by Charles Wilkins in 1785 and inspired by Warren Hastings. And thereafter, a lot of commentaries started coming in. It got translated into French, German, Russian, Latin, all these languages. And finally, it came to America and inspired the transcendental movement. The Sir Edwin Arnold's commentary, the song Celestial, is one of the known translation at that time. And then what happened? It inspired a lot of freedom fighters in the freedom struggle of India, including Mahatma Gandhi. And in 20th centuries, a lot of masters contributed to the propagation and the growth of the message of the Gita, and particularly calling out Swami Chinmayananda and the Swami Dayananda. And finally, this legacy is continuing even now. This is the summary of this session.